Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Dalmar, and today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Jim Clevenson, publisher of the Jewish World. Welcome to the Jewish World, Jim.
Well, thank you.
Listen, the Jewish World over at This is the Jewish View, but you are the Jewish World, so we're in the same business together, publicizing Judaism. But really, I knew your father, may he rest in peace, and he was the originator of the Jewish World. And tell us about why he wanted to get into, who he was, why did he get into the publishing business, why did he want to start the Jewish World?
Well, my dad grew up in an interesting place. He grew up in Laconia, New Hampshire, which you wouldn't think is a hotbed of Yiddishkeit, but it was. I don't know if it was a hotbed, but there was a Jewish community there.
There used to be a lot of little communities that you would like, again, to say they wouldn't be. Today would be very little Jewish communities, like even around here, Amsterdam, Gloversville, and, the old-timers would say, yeah, we have, I think they still have a very beautiful shul, and it was a vibrant Jewish community, but not today. But all right, so that's where he came from.
Well, there's still a shul in Laconia. There's a picture there on the wall of the groundbreaking for the building. My grandfather's in the picture. My dad grew up there in a family of about 10 kids. Grew up during the Depression. He was born in 1917. He had an interest in sports and writing from an early age. He started writing for it's a small city, Laconia, I guess I'll call it a city, for the city daily newspaper in about 1932. He was 15. So he did sports reporting and all kinds of stuff. And I don't know if you want to hear the whole history of Sam Clevenson, but
it's interesting. Go ahead.
I'll skip ahead to the early 50s after the war, where he served as a gunnery instructor. Luckily, he didn't have to go in combat. I think it was lucky. I met my mother in New York City in 51 or 52, got married in 52, and took a real job. At the time, he was working as a freelance writer and doing other things around New York City, working on newspapers in Long Island and stuff. He got a real job in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is where I was born. And then his father, who still lived up in Laconia.
Still in the newspaper business.
Yeah. He was working at the Springfield Leader Herald, not Leader Herald, I don't know what it was called. I don't remember, because we left there when I was only 2 or less. So his father told him there was a newspaper for sale in Farmington, New Hampshire, population 3,000. Until we got there were no Jews.
Really?
My dad went up, bought the paper, and we lived there until I was 8. And that's about the time you need to start learning Hebrew, how to read, so you can daven and stuff. Right. So we moved to Dover, which was a commutable distance. It was a bigger city than Farmington, for sure. And there was a shul there, and I started going to Hebrew school. But I think my father was probably tiring of running the Farmington News, which was a pretty tough gig. He had a print shop on the side, and the whole. And he was printing with, not just writing a newspaper. He was running printing presses and
the whole shtick.
Yeah, I can remember quite a bit of this, because as I say, we were there till I was 8/9, and so I think Dover, either he didn't like the Jewish community, I don't know about that, or it wasn't big enough for him, and maybe he was tiring of the Farmington News, so he was looking for a newspaper job, and he found one in Schenectady at the Union Star, which doesn't exist any longer. But so we moved here in 1963, and then he was involved with the Jewish community, and he, in discussions with some people at the JCC and what was then called the Jewish Community Council, which was the forerunner to what's now called Federation, they thought, well, you're a newspaper man, we could use a newspaper, why don't you start one? So I guess after thinking about that, he thought that it could work. And with some help from the Jewish community, they launched the Jewish World. I mean, it was his paper, but I think they helped him with like subscription lists and that kind of thing.
Right, right. So what year was that? When did it start?
That was 1965. I was about 12, and among many things that he did and I did were involved delivering newspapers on a bicycle, which
Really?
is, they weren't always
But it wasn't only
mailed.
for Schenectady, it was for the whole capital
Right, it was
district.
Schenectady, Albany, Troy, Saratoga. It was always, capital district centric. And I think that's been, to some extent a unifying influence. All these communities are still, I think, a little bit separate and separated from each other, but there's a lot more unity than there was 50 years ago. And I think that his efforts with the newspaper made it possible, or let's say, made the thinking more possible or probable for organizations like the community councils to combine into one federation, which we've had since I'm not sure what year that developed. 80s, I think, 1980s. I think, I'm not sure.
What was the subscription rate even when it started? I mean, what was the Jewish community was a little bit bigger. I don't know. I'm from Chicago, so I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And it wasn't around in the 60s here.
I don't know what the numbers were in those days, but I do know from having looked at I should have brought visual aids. Next time I'll bring copies of the old papers and stuff. The original subscription price was $4.
Yeah. It's the good old days. Already.
Yeah. Well, money was worth more, in those days. I know that the house that he bought in Schenectady was, $13,900, right?
All right, so now, when did he pass away, your father?
2008.
So now it's been about
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
And you took over the...
Well, Lori worked with him.
You were always working with
I was,
paper.
Well, the business developed in different ways. From the beginning, he felt that the Jewish world was going to need supplemental sources of income. So right away, I think, he started doing composition work. In those days, you had to go to a typesetter if you wanted to publish something, right? Not like today where you just do it yourself on the computer.
Your home computer.
So I didn't mention the first office was at 92 Central Avenue in Albany, which is near where Central Avenue and Washington Avenue come together. There was, I think there was a Jewish insurance guy on the first floor. I can't remember his name, but there was a sign on the building. I remember working there in the summer when I was 12, 13.
So it was, you were printing in Albany, but then you were also had a little bit job throughout the years. I mean, you started when you were 12.
Yeah, I mean, you work in a family business, you do a little this, a little that, simple stuff, and then you get older, you can apprentice kind of in different areas. I remember high school, I was working after school doing, writing up the bar mitzvahs and the engagements and the weddings, the formulaic simple stuff.
So you were in the printing business also, it wasn't just paper.
Well, we were doing the composition typesetting, and he was sending out printing, both his and other people's, essentially brokering it. Then in 1976, he bought printing presses that were installed in the office that we had at that time on Smith Street in Schenectady, which is directly behind Proctor's. That's where our office was for a number of years until we moved in 1979 to 1104 Central Avenue, where we were for about 20 years.
Yeah,
and we had a pretty...
That's why I remember the office.
Right. That's where we had a pretty large printing company that I was mainly responsible for developing until we kind of, I guess you would say we overinvested. We bought a lot of new and extensive printing equipment at a pretty bad time in the economy. I mean, we know what interest rates are today. At the time, I remember we were shopping around, and the best deal we got was 12.5% interest on a pretty large note on a new press that we put in. So that shop was closed in 1994, and after that I continued in the printing business, I tried to retain our accounts and send the printing to various printers and, essentially be the middleman. Meanwhile, my sister had joined the Jewish World also, Lori, in 1980, I believe. And she apprenticed as my dad's first copy editor, and then became, adopted more responsibility for selecting articles and editing them and, overseeing the layout of the paper. So when he died in 2008, she was already basically running the paper. He was, 90 at the time. So he was still working, but she was doing most of the work that he had done years ago.
Yeah, but take it to the present day. Newspapers we know are, even the New York Times, that's the number one newspaper in America, and they're losing many money, so much money. And nowadays, like you say, handheld, people with the computers.
Right.
So it's just a tough business all around, not even the Jewish World, but you just see that.
Right.
Many
well,
of the
Jewish World is having the two difficulties. The one you mentioned is newspapers are in somewhat of a decline, although niche papers like Jewish World have an advantage over, I think, general circulation dailies. And there are other things I could mention, too, that are, I think, enabling newspapers to find maybe a newer type of audience. And then the other thing is, which we didn't mention, is the Jewish community is not what it once was in terms of the commitment of its members to the tradition and to marrying Jewish and all the rest.
What about numbers, just simply numbers, how many Jews there are? I mean, again, they always say Schenectady has gone down. Again, I wasn't here, surely.
The city of Schenectady is definitely smaller than it was. The population of Schenectady is...
Troy also.
Oh, Schenectady, yeah, Troy is really, I think, hurting. I think the number of Jews has in the whole area has been somewhat constant. There are something
in
like
Saratoga, maybe in
7.
Clifton Park. No?
Yeah, probably the geographic location.
They're in the suburbs in Delmar, Clifton Park, Saratoga.
There's still, something like 8,000 households and probably 20 to 25,000 Jewish people.
Yeah, you'd say about 3 people is an average.
Right.
A few kids. Some people don't
Right.
have kids. Some are singles. Oh, that's still a sizable Jewish community.
Right. So,
but you say the commitment is not there on the Jewish people.
well,
They say
that's
I
a
saw
thing.
that about Jewish charities also, and they're worried about that because Jewish people anyway are very charitable, but they're not so much committed to the Jewish charities. Beforehand, they'd say, well, of course I have to support, not even a charity, but Jewish commitment, the JCC.
The Daughters of Sarah.
The numbers are stable, but how many non-Jews belong to the JCC? It's just a nice, good club. It doesn't make a difference if you're Jewish or not. And they're worried about even federation around the country, where people would say, of course, I have to give to my Jewish federation. I'll give other places, hospitals, etc. But, of course, federation. And now the millennium, the Jewish people just say, why? I don't have any commitment to them. Why should I give my hard-earned money to them? But a little bit that probably reflects in your newspaper, The Jewish World, also.
Yeah. We don't have the enthusiasm, I think. The amount, there are definitely diehard Yidden who, for whom the Jewish World is very important, and, they read it carefully every issue. But the thing is, I think that the Jewish World can be used as a tool to increase the participation of Jewish people and to even increase the amount of participation by people who are involved with synagogues and other organizations. My sense is that if we go back, I didn't mention, in 2011, until 2011, we had published every week for whatever it is, 45 years. And in 2011, we decided to try publishing every other week. And the thought being, if we can retain our revenue and cut our expenses by, cutting the printing and the mailing expenses, each issue will be in good shape. Because we were experiencing some severe trials, let's say, financially. So I would say that at this point we've decided that that experiment has not been as successful as we had hoped, and I'm very determined to go back to publishing every week, and also to increasing our print run and putting out free copies for people to discover. Because my belief is that there are many, many Jewish people out there who are not affiliated with synagogues, who are not affiliated with B'nai B'rith, Hadassah, all of the organizations, and who, if they see a Jewish paper for free, will pick it up. And all we have to do is make sure that we have something interesting in there that will possibly engage them at least enough to pick it up the next time as well. So in order to do this, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. We have new alliances with a number of different companies, including Schenectady Gazette, that's working with us on sales and a whole bunch of things.
Helping the sales? I mean,
they have, in addition to their regular sales department for the Gazette, they have a call center which does business with whoever wants, things sold over the phone. It's essentially a telemarketing company, and we've worked with them satisfactorily on one major project so far, and we're going to be working on our 50th anniversary issue, which is coming in the fall.
Excellent.
As well. So I think
they can help you with the advertisements, maybe
selling,
actually.
Right.
That's really a question itself. I mean, to say the least, how much is a subscription now to the? It used to be $4.
Right. Well, subscriptions are $57. Advertising is, starts in it's hundreds and thousands for depending on what you want.
But would be, better? There are papers, and around the country, even in the United States here in the Capital District, also they just give them out for free, so
Right.
You're covering everybody. You can say, hey, our subscriptions, like you say, whatever it is, 8,000 households, and your advertisement's 8,000.
Right.
So it's a plus and minus. Obviously, you're not getting the money from this subscription because you're getting it for free. And number two,
I don't have paid subscriptions from every household. Without saying how many I have, it isn't 8,000.
Yeah. Well,
so what I do is 4 times a year, and I have assistance from a Jewish organization to help do this. We mail to as many people in the community as we can, which is usually about 5,800, 6,000 households, sometimes as many as 8,000, depending on how many organizations are involved, to send a free paper on the holidays, Purim, Passover, Rosh Hashanah, yes, high holiday, and Hanukkah. Those issues go to, so we have a separate rate structure for selling those because the advertisers are getting more for their money. And those, that's the trend that I'm trying to develop, more of those kind of issues. I thought you were going to say a minute ago that there are, you did say there are papers that have completely free distribution.
Yeah, it's a plus and a minus.
Right.
Obviously you're printing up more, so that costs more. You're not getting money for subscription, so obviously you lost all that money there. But like you say, on the other hand, if you think, hey, 8,000 people
Right.
are seeing it, the advertisement rates goes up. So
Right.
I'm not the businessman you are, but obviously.
It sounds like you got a minor in there somewhere. Well, but yeah, I'm thinking a hybrid. People who are paying for a subscription are still getting it sent to them to their house. They don't have to go out and find it. It's being mailed to them. So they're getting value for buying a subscription. And if you put out free copies, then you're hopefully enticing more people to either buy a subscription or at least get involved. My thrust is to try to get more people involved in the Jewish community.
No, of course. As a Chabad person, I always say it's an important tool. Some people say, well, maybe the Jewish world should, fail. And I just said, if they can't make it, you can't make it. A lot of papers, like you say, the old papers haven't made it. And I always consider it as part of Chabad, a Jewish outreach is a very important tool to reach out to the Jewish community. As much as Chabad, we try to, but on the other hand, something printed in every week or every other week, whatever, that get a special issue, or even around the holidays, that's a big outreach program to, it's just the idea there's a Jewish world. It's something in its own right that maybe like the originators of the telling your father in the Federation, it's important that there's a Jewish presence. So even they read or they don't read, there's
it's
the
sort of
Jewish
like
world
standing
is
up to be
vibrant.
noticed.
Yeah, no, I think that's
in the
that
general
itself
community.
is like we say on Passover, Dayenu. That would be enough whether they read or not. But hey, there's a Jewish world. There is a community out there because, as we were saying, the assimilation. We mentioned it before. You mentioned it is becoming more and more. There's a lot more intermarriages going on. There's a lot more of non-committed committal to the synagogues. I don't know if it's 50%, maybe it's around 50% even belong to a synagogue. Like I say, maybe you could say something very neutral like the JCC, all you have to do is work out, no one asks you. There's nothing Jewishy about it that much.
Pray to God for one more rep.
Maybe. But again, that's not even the Jewish mind. So there's really a lot of, bottom line, a lot of unaffiliated Jewish people out there.
Right. Now, Chabad has a secret sauce for getting some of them involved.
Well, that's why I kind of even mentioned sometimes, it's not all, there's so many, it's multi-pronged to say the least, but it's just sometimes the saying, just come. Like no membership dues on the high holidays. Used to be people, I can't tell you how many people complain to me. I meet Jewish people. Oh yeah, I come once a year and they want a membership and it's big money at some of these places for once a year. I could go to the World Series, for that kind of money. They don't even charge that much, the World Series. So, and it turns a lot of people off because, I says, what are you going to do? Well, I just won't go anywhere. So money is an issue. Again, like you say, it's the balance. You don't want to say nothing for everybody because if people can afford it, they need to, sustain these temples. They can't run on air. On the other hand, how many people are being turned off to saying, hey, it's too expensive for me. I'll just stay at home or it won't bother me.
Obviously at some point, people who come to a Chabad thing are going to contribute to the maintenance of the Chabad Center as well. But
if they have the money.
Sure.
And
but
some people don't, so we don't pressure them. That's important. So that's why I say with the newspaper, that's why I guess I'm leaning towards people say, oh, yeah, I got to pay for a Jewish paper. And saying, well, you get it for nothing. Well, hey, for nothing, I'll take it. That I'll read it. So, again, business. I'm in a nonprofit organization. Obviously, we have to raise funds, and we're not looking for any profit after bottom line. Obviously, Jewish World would like to make some profit out of it, and and you're not there.
Well, making a living might be sufficient.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. You'd like to make something, and you have to think of subscription rates and advertisement. That's the thing, you have to think of more of a balance. So, on one hand, we're in the same business of Jewish education and Jewish outreach. The other hand, it's a difference between a nonprofit organization and a profit organization. You have to get that advertisement or subscription rates. Money's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
I can ask for a donation. Hey, we're helping out, children and all kinds of different people in the Jewish community. They're very unaffiliated. Because, wow, people that are inspired. Wow, you're doing great work. No one's reaching out to them, even though, like I say, I would hope the Jewish world would be a tool to reaching out to people. Like I say, temples sometimes close their doors. You don't have money. Well, sorry, leave. Or people have to beg for scholarships. These are all complaints that people have come to me throughout the years, Well, I have to fill out a scholarship. I have a state job, and I'm not a low class person, but your dues are too much. Like it's a high class situation. So people say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to lower myself. These are all the issues in the Jewish community. But again, a lot of things I see reflect in the Jewish world. Subscription rates. Oh, for free, I'll take it. That's what I'm. It's a hard business decision, like you say. We're not in the business, so we can just get into debt and say we're going to just print out and, even like here we're on the Jewish View and, no one gives us any money for it. And, hey, we're, how many people that are watching us and seeing something in the Jewish community, but you can't do that.
Well, I am going to be going out and talking to people in the community because in order to do what I think we need to do and what I want to do, it's going to require some investment, at least for the first year or two. And then, it can become, I believe, self-sustaining. But in order to really make a product that kicks butt, as they say. You do need something to do it with.
Is there anything maybe in the articles? I mean, I'm not a writer and you're the publisher. But sometimes, I always found, I mean, of course, I love Israel and, it's so important, such an integral part of the Jewish community, field. But on the other hand, it's always when you go out to the people, they care about it, but on the other hand, they're not just that big of an interest. So when you say something about Israel, it just doesn't turn people on that much. Like, I got to find out what's happening there. They watch the news and it's good enough, whatever, the national news, television news tells them.
Well, I don't think that, especially being once every 2 weeks and even once a week and even once a day, with the kind of news resources people have, a newspaper has to do something different than try to break the news, because a newspaper is just not going to break the news. And
now with the handheld devices, they get it in 2 minutes.
Now, one of the London newspapers, I forget whether it's the Times or the Guardian, announced that they're not even going to cover breaking news. They're focusing their attention on becoming a different kind of resource for people. They have a website, of course, but they said they're only going to update that even 3 times a day. Not instantaneous, continual. So what can a newspaper be? Something different, something where people can get other kinds of news, in-depth articles, opinion pieces, material that they can think about. So I think the Jewish world can move more in that direction too.
Yeah, that's interesting. Again, I think you have to be creative. It's not like the old news where people would morning news. What happened?
Yeah, it's not like we can't do extra read all about it anymore. Because people are already reading about it.
Yeah, that's it. So you have to be creative in creative articles, getting people's participation, maybe opinion polls. Getting a little bit different. Well, I think the Jewish world actually has, like you say, a niche in that sense where the news isn't taking up. Maybe that's what I'm saying. Israel, they say, all right, I saw an article, or a television program about Israel or some news, something or another. But otherwise they're not going to cover Jewish, except for the Jewish View, once a week. But like I say, something that interests Jewish people in certain ways or another. You have to be creative nowadays, really creative. And, maybe the advertisement then would come in.
Well, it all depends on how much excitement there is in the paper. And I think we have, our readers are interested in getting it and reading it. But, I think that we can generate more interest. I think there are a lot more that we can do if we have the resources to do it.
It's interesting. There's people maybe out there in the Jewish community that, see as a vital tool in spreading out Judaism, being just awareness. I mean, of course, Chabad, we're more the Orthodox and the Torah and the Mitzvahs, but really your Jewish world, like you say, is a unifying kind of idea because it's, just consensus with every aspect of Judaism, not just, a Torah or Orthodox Jewish
right, but
vehicle.
I do not do Orthodox practice, or at least not consistently. But I will say that without that, or without the tradition, that generates all of that ritual practice as well, where are people, where are people going to get the inspiration for social justice and all the rest of the stuff that some of the non-observant Jews are into? I think Judaism is underappreciated for sure. I think without Torah and Talmud, without even a passing acquaintance with it, you're really missing something precious that's developed in the course of human history. To me, it's like jewels. I put in one of the pieces that I was writing recently, I referred to it as, one of the flowers of the human spirit, which I I don't know what else to say.
Well, there's not that much to say because we're out of time, Jim. And we'd like to have you back, of course, and always check in with the Jewish world. And we wish you a lot of success. And I think it's being vital part of the Jewish community is the Jewish world. So hope you expand and reach out to more Jewish people. And thank you for being on the Jewish View.
Thanks. Yasher Koach to you.